Welcome to another Workshop Wednesday. Carrie, say something. Make sure your audio
Something. I'm here. Yay! I'm all oriented and good to go.
All right. And we've got our blurry background, so you have no idea what's behind us.
You don't know what we're doing or where we are. Secret hiding location.
Our undisclosed location. Well, Carrie wasn't here last week, and we talked about going.
But I was near you. You just.
Right.
That's another
story. I actually had to go fly solo last week because both Bevan and Carrie were being oriented.
Yes.
For college, not for you, but for Bevan.
That's right. I don't want to go back to college. It's done. Check.
Right. The only school you want to go back to is School of Bookkeeping.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a whole lot easier than college. It's in 3-minute little.
Right. Imagine taking a lecture that was only 3 minutes in college.
Oh boy, that would be fun.
Right. So we're going to continue our workshops on converting. So data converting from in the QuickBooks world. So last week we talked about your not so favorite subject of moving from desktop to online and how to do that. But today we're going to be reversing that and talking about your favorite subject of moving from online to desktop.
Right? You went there and you said, "Where are my features?" And so you went back to desktop.
which could happen. Or what are some of the other situations where you've seen people go from abandon online, right? Like they're in online, they want to go back to desktop. What are some of the use cases that you've seen?
Generally, it's features. They're trying to do more than QBO is designed to do. They want to track their inventory in a package that has everything rather than cobble it together with apps. Or if they don't have good luck with the apps that somebody said, "Oh, these will work great," or it appeared to look great. They find out, "Oh, I didn't know Enterprise can do that," or whatever it is. So they may want to save the data they have because it might be in okay shape, but just not tracking that particular area, or the reporting that they require isn't there. So they often will leave. But it's generally around inventory is the main thing. Job costing can sometimes be another area that they need a little more oomph.
Yeah. So basically, if you're looking for, a one-stop shop inside of QuickBooks, you'll find that in a desktop as opposed to online, where online will have a lot of apps that will work with QuickBooks. But then, to your point, you may find things that are kind of cobbled together and not being able to access all of those things.
And we got a message from our chat, our favorite Susan. And yeah, salespeople sometimes will, there's a lot of Intuit employees, but they're designed to sell QuickBooks Online, so that's where the company wants to go. But as we know, and Susan knows, desktop has some features that they have not replicated that we need. So they may land in QuickBooks Online with a sales agent that might not be seasoned enough to realize this is not the right fit, which Dan and I we laugh about whether online or desktop is the right fit, but ultimately we want the customer in the right fit, not necessarily selecting by starting with product first.
Yeah, and we have at School of Bookkeeping, we've created a couple resource guides. I guess you would call them that, but they're guided tours, I guess, to help with some of those questions that will come up, as far as the workflow. Like if you're trying to track inventory and you're trying to track it in multiple locations, that's something that QuickBooks Online is not going to handle. So it'll steer you in the right direction when you're trying to do that. And we've also now started creating one that is for data conversion, right? So a lot of those simpler questions of, I'm trying to go from desktop to online or online to desktop, or And next week we're going to be talking about round tripping your data with Mac, QuickBooks for Mac.
It's still there because the
there,
pro advisor said, "Oh no, don't kill it." So it worked. If you like a product enough, you can speak with your feet.
Right. So we're going to be talking about that next week, and then we'll be talking about converting from other accounting software into or out of into QuickBooks, either desktop or online, depending on where you need to go. So we're going to see where I have that. I have it here. So I'm going to, trying to fumble along with my non-Mac computer.
We don't do well without our Macs.
So I'm going to put that in there. Make sure if you're going to chat, Carrie, that you put it to all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, Susan will not be able to see what's going on, or anybody else joining us on the webinar side of things. You can join us. So we're sharing this also on Facebook as well, so you can join us there. But if you want to participate live, you can join the register with the webinar series. That way you'll get the notification to join us. You can put it on your calendar. Join us whenever you see fit, or there's a topic that we're going to be talking about and you want to participate. That would be best is to register with the webinar. So I put in the data conversion guide. Still work in progress or process. Did I say that right? I can't remember. Work in progress.
Progress. Progress, same thing.
Yeah.
I think.
Still working
on it. We need to just bring Susan in our panel.
That's right. Yeah. Still working on it, but you can go in there and kind of check it out, and it'll guide you through some of those. Yeah, exactly.
We do.
We try. So today we're going to focus on converting data from QuickBooks Online to desktop. We talked about some of the cases where that may happen, and this process used to be reliant on Internet Explorer.
That was no Freudian slip.
Yeah. And it was never updated, and you had to figure out or hobble along with Internet Explorer settings, use ActiveX controls, and it was very cumbersome, and finally Intuit had said enough, right? And said, okay, well, we're not even going to convert data from online to desktop. And we did a workshop a little bit on that, and kind of left some people out in the cold. But fortunately,
mid-December.
Yeah, it was like right before the end of the year.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, or whatever you celebrate. And here's your gift. And it's right around the time when people were converting data, starting, okay, well, I'll start the new year off right with going to desktop. Oh, you can't do that no more. And they put the brakes on converting data from online to desktop. But in true Intuit fashion, they heard from feedback and created a process to be able to do that. That is, one, not dependent on Internet Explorer anymore, and two, available, to use, right? So there was a tool that they were using internally, and they made that available to the general public. So there is a way to do that. Now, the caveat is still going to do the exact same thing that it did before when you had to use Internet Explorer. It just now is an easier way to do that, right? So still has the same limitations as going from online to desktop did in the past. It's just a lot easier to do. So we're going to kind of walk through that process. So I had to close out things to keep in mind when you're making the move, if you're using any integrated products like full service payroll.
Mm-hmm.
or even core payroll. The payroll is not going to come over as payroll. It's going to hop over there as a check. So you have to be ready to clean that up and get your subscriptions and so forth ready for desktop to go ahead and start working on that, because your desktop full service payroll will not be ready the day you convert it. So keep that in mind.
We're building those things in there. So I put in the message, or I'm sorry, in the chat here, a couple of links. One is the process of how to do this, and the other one is to know the limitations of that. So let me pull that up here real quick. And this mouse is driving.
While you're doing that, I'll also mention payments. So if you're using integrated payments with QuickBooks Online, you'll want to go ahead and apply for a new account under desktop, and make sure you don't just do it in product, because it's more money than working with CBG or another reseller. So make sure you get your discount.
Okay, so you should be looking at my screen here, right? Okay, so this is the article that Intuit has created that talks about the limitations when you convert from QuickBooks Online to desktop. And sometimes these articles are hard to find because there's prepositions involved, the from and the to, right? So sometimes you'll get connected to the from desktop to QuickBooks limitations article, as opposed to the from online to desktop limitations. But this is the one that you want to be able to see. I put it in the comments of in the chats here, and we'll also have that added on QuickBooks. I'm sorry, on the Facebook Live comments, as well as a resource for you. So this is how the data gets converted from QuickBooks Online to desktop. So you know more than anything what your client's doing, or what your customer's doing, or what you're doing inside of QuickBooks Online. So this is a good way to just kind of go down the list and see what's going to happen, right? So the first thing, and it talks about it here to keep in mind before you convert, is if you are using multi-currency in QuickBooks Online, don't bother, right?
Start over.
It's just not going to work properly. You shouldn't convert from to QuickBooks Desktop, because the data won't export properly. And then if you needed a recent version of QuickBooks Desktop, you can download a trial, and the links are right there in the article to be able to do that. But things like field limitations or estimates, that's always a concern. What happens to the estimates? So you can just click on the area, and it will tell you, right? So your estimates don't convert, right? So if you need estimates, your estimates converted, the conversion process won't do that. You'll want to just re-enter those, maybe export a list out of QuickBooks Online and use a utility to bring in those estimates. Other lists, payment methods, the payroll information is a big one, as you had mentioned. So those payroll checks, just like in a conversion from desktop to online, as we talked about yesterday, payroll checks don't come over as paychecks. They'll come over with the financial impact of those checks, but as it's saying here, it will export as regular checks. The pay period and liability period, they don't export. And just keep in mind that after you export to desktop online, you have to set up your employees and enter your historical tax payments. So the payroll data and the financial impact comes over. It just doesn't recognize the payroll service.
The main stuff, the stuff you need for W-2s and so forth, it won't come over.
Exactly. So this article is really helpful before even determining if you actually do want to make that journey, right? And then, so let's just kind of walk through this process of exporting. Who I want to log in as here. Go in, All right. So when you're in a company, I'll just use this one as an example. So the company itself, when you're in the company, all you need to do is to get to this workflow is to change the web address up here at the top. So I mean, sometimes if you go to the gear and try to choose this export data, what you'll end up seeing is how to export reports and things of that nature. If you are moving to desktop, then it takes you to this article, right? So how to, and again, it's wanting you to do a your lists and balances. So it's not really giving you the idea of what it is that you're trying to do is to export your entire financial picture there.
Details.
So,
Your details,
right, the detail that you're
not just a summary.
right. So the way to actually get to exporting your converting your data, your full data, is by going to this website here, and all it is just backspacing over whatever you happen to be looking at, the URL at the top, and then entering in this export QBO data to QBDT.
Wow.
Right. I mean, it makes sense. You know, that's what you're trying to do. You just have to enter it in exactly that way. So as soon as you go to export QBO data, export QBO data to QBDT, you're going to get this. And this is what it used to look like when you were using Internet Explorer. So the workflow is exactly the same, right? So there's these 5 steps to set up your system. Select the type of data, request the data, export and create the desktop company file, and then check your reports to see what came over. One of the other things I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of is if you're doing sales tax in QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online and Desktop handle sales tax very differently, and if you're using the new version of QuickBooks Online sales tax, those sales tax payments that you may have made in QuickBooks Online don't come over. So they come over as they don't come over at all. Like those tax payments, they don't even turn into checks or anything like that. So right here it says no sales tax payments or adjustments will export. So that makes it a bit of a challenge, because keeping in mind that you may have sent a sales tax payment or paid your sales tax, that's a check, and then out of your bank account, and then you're going to reconcile that. So if none of those come over, well, now your reconciliations are off. So just bear that in mind, that you've got a domino effect of the checks don't come over, then of course the reconciliations are going to be impacted by that. But if this is a year's worth of data and you're doing 12 months, that's 12 tax payments to re-enter, and then you reconcile them and you're back up and running. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of the world. Just keep that in mind, that sales tax payments don't come over from online to desktop. So therefore your reconciliations are going to be off, and you're going to have to, that's part of the cleanup process when you actually compare online and desktop reports, why they don't match. Oh, it was sales tax payments. So I forgot where I was at. Okay. We went down the rabbit hole with sales tax. All right. So when you get started, the first thing to do is download a tool, right? Wow. This is the new part, right? So you have to download a migration tool, and then you just
Can this download on a MacBook? Download locally?
No, it's Windows only, because you're only going to be converting to QuickBooks for Windows. Right. So I can actually show it now because I'm using a Windows machine.
Well, there's the blessing in your computer situation.
Right. So it just downloads an executable, and then you launch it and install it. It's a very small application. But this takes the place of having to do those that ActiveX installation in the past. So that's how you would get that. Now, if you've downloaded it, you don't have to download it. You only have to download it and install it once. So even if you're using this for different company files, that's totally fine. You don't have to keep installing it. So if you haven't downloaded already, or if you did download it in the past, you don't have to keep download. Click the download tool. You just go to continue. All right, and then it's going to ask you what data do you want to export. Once you request the data, any data that you enter in after that would have to be re-entered. So it's all financial data or all financial data without transactions. So lists and balances is what would be converted. If you choose all lists all financial data without transactions, which is kind of an oxymoron because it's not all financial data. It's just
it's what they want to send.
It's immediate, right? So you don't have to wait for anything. If you choose all financial data, it's going to take some time to prepare that data. And then what will happen next is you'll get, first it's going to tell you a few things that you are using and what to expect with that when it's converted. So in this case, I'm using locations. They won't be exported because location tracking doesn't exist in desktop. If I've used statements, those statements won't be exported. So just to give you a heads up, inside of QuickBooks Desktop and an online conversion, and then it will ask, okay, what's the email address that it'd like to send you to? So once the data is created, then it's going to send an email once it's finished and ready to be converted. And that's the first part, the step one, right?
We have a question.
Oh, we do.
When you say the word quote sometime, you talking hours or days, and is it depending on which one they selected?
Yeah, I've seen this take 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It really just depends on how much data, but it never takes hours or it never takes days, right? It's just a few minutes. If I actually check my email, I bet it's already there. Can't remember my own passcode. Come on. It's there.
Well, Susan, as you know, we were not going to get everything we want, so that might be why it just takes a few minutes.
There we go. Oh. Of course, I chose an email that I don't have on my phone. So somewhere there is that email. So let me see here. What I could do, when you do get the email, you repeat the process. You have to go back into the company file and do the export data URL and act like you're doing this whole process again. But what you'll have is another button. So we're going to hit get started and then continue. And then as soon as I choose all financial data.
So if you do this and you don't like you can do one and you don't like the results, you can do it again because you're just taking what's live in QBO and moving it to a new file.
Or if somebody went in after you had requested data and then did a whole lot of work and you wanted to convert it again, you certainly can. Oh, so this is saying it's in the process of creating my company file to download. When it's ready, you can download it then.
Okay.
See if I can remember a company that I already did a conversion for.
Do mine, the Healy.
Yeah, so let me switch company. Windows open here. Here. That was Healy, right?
Yep. HEAL. Oh, there you go.
stop sharing because it's actually a real company. Don't want to be showing all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to go into that. Export to QuickBooks Online. Once I get there, I'll start sharing again.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back here. Guys there. Okay, so we hit get started, and then hit continue because I don't have to download the tool again. Choose all financial data. Now, this particular company, we had converted data months ago, right?
Yeah.
So this is a new screen, and this is what you want to see after you get that email saying, "Hey, your data is ready to be converted." All right. So it says we already have a file that was created back March.
Scrap it and start over. I never did work on it.
Right. So if you've created a request for the data to be converted, then you'll have this button now to continue to the download, or if
start over,
or if Carrie wants to start over, you can start over. Now I'm going to choose to continue to download just so that we can see the rest of the process, right? We're not actually going to do the conversion, but
okay.
So the next thing is to download the QBXML file. What's the QBXML file, you may ask?
I have no idea.
So that is the proprietary QuickBooks Online file that QuickBooks Online is going to use to convert the data into desktop, right? So in the past, QBXML was such a proprietary file that once you downloaded it, Windows couldn't even see it. So you kind of had to know where you put it if you wanted Windows to actually see it. But now it actually will see it again. So someone at Intuit told Microsoft what the file actually was, so it didn't actually hide it. But there used to be all sorts of shenanigans going on with that. But you would just choose to download the QBXML file, and then it will save it here as a file called export company. Whoops. Show the folder, not the export company. In this case, it puts a parentheses 16 because it saves it in the exact same location each time. So that will let you know that I have converted 16 files using this process
on that computer.
On this computer, right? Because and then you can change the name of this if you want. It's not necessary, but this is the company file that it's going to use to convert the data. So once you've done that, the next step is to convert your data, right? And they shows you the process of what you need to do here, and with screenshots. And the way to do that is I need to launch QuickBooks. So once you've downloaded it, you're done with QuickBooks Online, right? So I'm just going to launch 2020. Sorry for the messy desktop.
I was just about to say, I'm shocked.
I know exactly where everything is.
I bet so.
Okay, so the next process is just to be at the No Company Open inside of QuickBooks.
Okay.
And we just need to find our data migration tool, which is right here. Right. So that tool that you downloaded.
Aha. And you want that path.
Yeah. So let me go ahead and minimize all this stuff here. All right. I can't make this bigger to hide anything else, but that's all it is. It's like, okay, where's the QBXML file? So you just browse to it. All right. I know it
was in the D.
On my D drive.
Right there.
So there's the QBXML file. All right. And then import, right? As long as you're at the No Company Open screen inside of QuickBooks, it's just going to use whatever version of QuickBooks just happens to be open. And then the data migration. Oh, well, come on. Use an old one. Let's use 15. Okay, and then it's going to ask, well, where's the company file? You know, where do you want to save the QBW file inside of QuickBooks? So I'll just use test QB file. I'll call it that. Now, the next thing that's going to happen is it's going to yell at you. QuickBooks is going to yell at you to acknowledge a certificate.
Ah.
There it is. And obviously, sometimes it takes a little bit for that to come up. Any of the yes options is all you want to choose. So it could be yes prompt each time because it's only going to do this and ask it once. Or you could say yes even when QuickBooks is closed. It doesn't matter which one. As long as you don't say no, you'll be okay. You just confirm that, and then it's going to start converting the data. Now, if you go back to the migration tool, you can see that it's starting to process hundreds of records at a time. So it's now converting this data. I don't know what company I actually selected by using that
Number
XML
15.
file, but it's actually processing it. And you can watch the conversion take place. And if you hover over QuickBooks Desktop, you'll see your cursor will actually start kind of flickering because it's actually doing this one record at a time. So if you go to if you try to access inside of QuickBooks, it's actually accessible, right? It's just a really slow process as far as navigating inside of QuickBooks. But you could actually go into the chart of accounts, eventually opening up the chart of accounts inside of QuickBooks Desktop and watch the numbers change, you know, as data is being imported here. So the next thing to do once you're done is to, once it says it's converted, and we're not going to wait the whole time to actually have that happen, but once it's done converting, then it's a matter of running, just like we talked about last week, run the balance sheet for all dates on an accrual basis. And why do you want to use accrual, do you think, Carrie?
So you have accurate data. Because it's a cruel world when you don't.
That's right. Because we know that cash basis reporting, could be impacted. So we want to make sure that the data made the journey. And the best way to do that is by using an accrual basis, which doesn't mean that they have to use accrual moving forward. You can still use a cash basis, but let's just say a payment comes over, but it doesn't get applied during the conversion process. Cash-based reporting is going to be off, right? So, but if you run an accrual basis report, the invoice and the payment will still show up, and you'll have the right balance when you run that balance sheet for all dates. So that's the best way to confirm that data made the journey. Run the balance sheet and the profit and loss for all dates, and then compare the balances. And then if they don't match, then you start troubleshooting, right? And finally just showed up. You can see my cursor is kind of spazzing out there. So that is the way to convert desktop or online data to desktop. We're going to include these things and more in a course that we're creating for schoolbookkeeping.com. So you can rewatch these snippets, as a member of School Bookkeeping in small chunks, right? So you don't have to watch this whole workshop over and say, well, where do we talk about that? So we'll break down these things in small consumable chunks so that you can rewatch those on School Bookkeeping in a course. And of course, if you need assistance, you can go from there as well. So if you're a pro member, you can pop into the quick answers and ask a question, and we'll get you back to business. And Carrie won't be answering any of those questions.
No, but I know who to ask.
Exactly. So anything you want to add about this whole process, Carrie? Have you seen this been successful as far as the converting back and forth, issues that you've seen or run into in your
I've seen a
20-year
lot of
history of converting data?
Well, it's not my area of expertise, so I know who to call and get help. So definitely there's a need for it. We see a lot of people, I guess in this past year, a lot of people trying to get their systems straight, and they're realizing, I've been limping along, and this software, whether it's QBO or QBDT, is not giving me what I need, and they're anxiously fixing, and then realizing this is never going to work. I need to switch. A desktop used to work for me. I want to go back, or there's some feature they have to have for their workflow. So it seems like, to me, it feels like we've had an increased demand since year end, and it hasn't stopped. So it's a really great area as a pro advisor to learn about, mm-hmm. So you can support and move people into the right product. But also it's great that we have the resources in School of Bookkeeping if I wanted to learn, or I can hire you to do it because I don't want to do it.
Right. Yeah, I've in my years of working at Intuit and after, this has kind of been the most common thing that people just want to. I don't want to learn this, right? But I need it done.
Just do it.
Right?
I need it now. Because there's actually, there's also, just because you converted the file from one to the other doesn't mean everything made the journey. So it's good to understand that whole workflow of what won't come over. So you're not going to set expectations too high. QuickBooks was not designed for you to say, oh, I hate QBO, I want to go desktop, or I hate desktop, I want to go back. Those are not interchangeable programs. So you do skid your chin a little bit when you fall off the bike.
Exactly.
So.
And yeah, you do tend to realize, okay, just because it says QuickBooks doesn't mean that online and desktop, synchronize. I actually had a situation where somebody thought that they could work in their QuickBooks Mac and just re-upload their changes into QuickBooks Online like it would synchronize. And then what was happening is he kept, the accountant was working in online, and the client was working in desktop, and they kept sending data, and what they kept doing was overwriting all of the changes. So the accountant called in and said, hey, I entered all this stuff in. What happened to it? Like I was supposed to know that this is what their client was doing. But we could actually look in the audit trail, and we saw that somebody imported, 2 days ago. And so they ended up contacting their client, and lo and behold, that's what they were doing, thinking inadvertently that they could just synchronize data between desktop and online. Well, it doesn't work that way at all. So they had that conversation of stop that.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah, that'll cost you, Mr. Client, of all the work that you overwrote for me.
Yes.
So next week we're going to talk about that round tripping experience from Mac to Windows and back again for QuickBooks Desktop. We'll actually have one of the School of Bookkeeping students or members. I'm not sure what we call each other, but we'll have a subscriber of School of Bookkeeping who contacted us and needed help with a client that had QuickBooks for Mac. They had QuickBooks for Windows, but couldn't seem to get the round tripping to take place. So we'll talk about that experience and how that happened. So Carrie, we may need you because you have the Mac version. You have Mac, so we'll see the whole process and
okay.
How it round tripped. So we can hopefully do that live.
Tripping next week.
Right, next week. So thanks for joining us this week. Hopefully it was helpful. And if you have any questions, continue the conversation on the Facebook Facebook Live in the comments section there. And as always, if you want to join us live and communicate with us in the chat, you can register for the webinar series. So Carrie, it was good to see you, and we'll see you guys next week.
Sounds great. Until then, have a great week.